Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be checking out X-Men issue 1 by Jed MacKay and Ryan Stegman. The new era of X-Men comics begins right here, as 10 months after the end of the Krakoa era, the X-Men are doing what they do best despite being dispersed across the globe. The main X-team, led by Cyclops, continues to fight the good fight against what's left of Orchis and their soldiers. Jed MacKay hits the ground running with this first issue, throwing us right into the midst of a mission with Cyclops' new team, comprised of Magic, Juggernaut, Kid Omega, Psylocke, Temper, and Beast. I like how the team is mostly made up of psychics or people who have some sort of mental adjacent ability, yet they still cover a wide range of bases and allow the team to respond to a wide range of threats as well. As Scott's group gets into the action, Beast meets with Alaskan Police Chief Robbins, seeing as the team have moved into the frigid mountains of Alaska, taking over an old Orchis factory there. Beast assures the chief that they want to be left alone to live out their lives, but of course the people of the nearby town have some concerns with the X-Men moving in nearby, especially since the town relied on the Orchis factory for work, and the X-Men put them out of work. I love the reveal that the X-Men base now used to be a Sentinel factory, and there's something nice about the X-Men taking it back and making it into a place for people to be welcome in and kind of turning it into a place of warmth and safety. Cyclops' team meanwhile closes in on their target, which is Wolverine, who has been captured while on a mission for Scott. The Orchis soldiers are trying to torture Wolverine, but of course, it's Wolverine. He doesn't really care for that and doesn't find it at all bit torturous. The team are quick to find where Logan is thanks to probing the minds of some scientists, but we also learn that these guys aren't Orchis. They are the fourth school, an Orchis remnant left over from when the AI betrayed the human portion of Orchis. While obviously this book will still be dealing with the fallout of the Krakoa era, I did enjoy that it isn't a clean break as I assumed it would be. Instead, it's pretty much a continuation of that era, just with a new paint job and some new writers. Because of this though, I can see this being pretty daunting for new readers who maybe didn't read the Krakoa era or jumped off halfway after Hickman left and don't know what's been going on, so I can't really see them sort of understanding all this stuff from, AIs betraying Orchis and stuff like it being from the future and also from the past thanks to Moira and all this really heady stuff that the later years of the Krakoa era X-Men did. The book even makes multiple callbacks to early 2000s X-Men stuff, specifically the U-Men from that era, comparing the Orchis teams to them, which is something I really didn't expect, being that the U-Men are from so long ago, and I don't think anyone really reading the comic at the moment would know who they are. I even struggled to remember who they were. That was just so long ago. That said, the book doesn't lay it on thick and eases you into this Krakoa stuff, being sure to put the new team first as we get to see a lot of their teamwork in action pretty quick off the bat. Cyclops reveals Wolverine isn't the only one in the base they are after, as Cerebro picked up 6 mutants in the base, and it's why Wolverine was sent there to investigate in the first place. Beast and Chief Robbins continue to bond a little bit over their time in the Orchis base, first over their love of sweet treats, and then over the fact that they both just kind of want what's best for their respective peoples. Jed plays with Beast's role in the Krakoa era really well, as this Beast wasn't actually the war crime committing one we got in that era. There was a whole heap of different stuff of different beasts, and it got really kind of confusing there at the end through X-Force and some of the other X-Men books, but this Beast is not that war crime committing beast. Despite him not actually being that, I like that he finds what happened during the Krakoa era with him quite a sore subject, and one he very clearly wants to talk to someone with, but ends up holding back until he gets to know Robbins a little bit more. I get the feeling that these two will become sort of a common duo throughout this book. I don't think they'll form any sort of romantic partnership, but they are more like parents who just want what's best for their kids, and they're kind of bonding over that. I think that's a really great change of pace compared to the Beast we got for the last few years. He's kind of mellowed out a little bit. Ryan Stegman, of course, joins Jed on the art side of things, giving the X-Men a complete overhaul of their costumes, and I quite like the new costumes. I think they're all great. I really like Scott's new costume. I think it takes parts from all his previous costumes and integrates them really well together. I do, however, think that all of the X-Men, and this is really just because of how Stegman's style is, they all appear a lot younger than they usually are depicted, and it's it's a little strange, especially when you have Magneto talking about fighting them all as teenagers, decades and years ago, when they should all look like teenagers. However, they now still look like teenagers. It's really quite strange. The page layouts that Stegman does, though, are really fun as hell, making creative use of all of the page space, especially during the action, which is really fun as well, thanks to all of the characters' unique abilities. As I said before, there's a nice range of abilities, from Juggernaut, being the big smash 'em up brute of the team, and you got Magic with her magic sword, and you got Tempo with all her ice and wind powers, and then of course Scott bouncing his concussive blasts off of surfaces, which is really cool, and something I like to think that they maybe picked up from the animated series as of late, since that did wonders for Scott Summers and his powers and how they can be used. And hopefully we get to see a little bit more of a creative side with his powers through this series, thanks to that animated series. Two characters I think will fill the romance part, since I don't think Robbins and Hank will, are Kid Omega and Temper, being that they are ex-boyfriend and girlfriend, and they find themselves now on the same team, having to look out for each other, and of course they bicker like an old married couple. It's a lot of fun. It adds a little bit of humor to the team. I quite like that. I think an X-Men team should always have some sort of humorous element to the team, be it from a character, just a funny looking character or a funny character, or just, again, like this, two people who have a previous relationship and they get along but they don't get along. It's always really fun. The team's bickering is quickly put on hold though, as they find the 6 mutants, and they find that they are actually Orchis scientists who want nothing to do with the X-Men, and this is all seemingly a trap. Beast meanwhile finishes his tour of the X facility with Robbins, introducing the team's healer Zorn, a mutant I kind of have a little bit of a soft spot for, and I like seeing him getting some love. But the most interesting thing about this is we meet the team's sort of overseer, or the person in charge more or less, and that's Magneto, who's adopted the Xavier role, complete with hovering chair, while Charles rots away in prison. I do quite like the shift here, as Beast is completely open with the humans around him, inviting them into his home and making them part of their lives as well, and he wants to sort of ease tensions with Robbins and her people, and Magneto's kind of the foil to that, and the opposite side of that mirror, where he doesn't really care for any of that, and he's basically just playing the bad cop to Hank's good cop, laying down the law that he wants his people to thrive, and he'll do anything by any means necessary to make sure that happens. I also love that Jed is sure to paint Magneto, or Max as he goes by now, with that arrogance, that Magneto arrogance we've seen time and time again, like how he equates how the X-Men are now is all thanks to him, since in their younger years he and his tormenting of the X-Men and Xavier and Scott and Hank all helped make them stronger people. And in a way that's kind of true, but there's also that arrogant, self-important nature that Magneto has, where he thinks that he's the only one who did this, and he's the one who actually trained these people to become good, competent mutants, unlike Xavier. The X-Men meanwhile battle the 6 Orchis mutants, who all have had their X gene activate at the same time somehow, and while they were adults, not when they hit puberty. And their powers even put the seasoned team to the test, and they have some pretty cool powers. They're able to conjure black holes, turn to liquid, one can even eat people's thoughts, which is kind of a terrifying ability. But fighting mutants completely shifts how Cyclops and the team deal with them, since they kind of want to try and talk them down and try and convince them that Orchis is not the way, believing that they have been brainwashed. It's during this fight we actually get a hint at what I guess will be the overarching villains, which are 2 shadowy beings who watch the fight from up high, and it turns out these 2 gave the 4th School these mutant powers in exchange for wanting Wolverine, hence why they captured Wolverine, and they were meant to give Wolverine to these 2 people, but they never did, and since they never provided payment in the form of Wolverine, these people take back the Orchis scientists they gave the mutant powers to, teleporting them away before the X-Men can defeat them. Interestingly, Wolverine decides that enough is enough and he's going to leave the team, not wanting to build up something anymore after what happened to Krakoa, knowing it could just fall back down again, and it probably will. This is just kind of to set up his own solo book coming later this year, and also keeps the team at I think a reasonable size. I think with Wolverine just sort of tagging along, it might have been one too many, and as well it probably helps Jed not rely on Wolverine, because of course Wolverine is like a fan favorite favorite character. You got to put him in everything if he's part of the team, so I imagine he'll stop in every now and then, but I like that they've made it quite clear straight from this first issue that no, he's not going to be on the team completely. He'll pop in every now and then, but he's not part of this book. The book rounds out with the X-Men put on the trail of two of these shadowy people and whatever the 6 mutants they fought were, with Magic having cut off one of their hands for Hank to study. The final pages are quite interesting as well, as Beast fills Cyclops in on Robins from the local town stopping by, and we learn the city nearby where the workers in the Sentinel factory lived were almost wiped out by a Sentinel from said factory, which was frozen in place by the X-Men, so the X-Men basically saved this town. But when Scott learns that Hank wants to strip the giant Sentinel for parts to use in the base, he refuses, wanting it to be left as a monument so the humans don't forget who saved them and really, in a way, don't forget who's in charge. This completely changes how the X-Men are treating these people, in my eyes at least, or at least how Scott is treating these people. This feels a lot different than what we usually get with Scott. It feels quite despotic in a way. You know, he's sort of lording over all of these people and using this Sentinel as a grim reminder of what could have happened if the X-Men weren't there. It's very strange, very kind of sinister in that way, and that makes me really excited to see where Jed is going to take these characters and what he's going to do with them now. X-Men issue 1 rebooted the mutants in a post-Krakoa world and did a damn fine job about it. There's still a few connections to Krakoa that I think new readers might find daunting to wrap their heads around, but Jed and Ryan craft a wonderful, intriguing new story for Cyclops and his new X-Men team that has me excited for the future of the X-Men books at Marvel. I'm going to give this issue an 8.5 out of 10.